So, jumping around a range of topics, but I also wanted to mention the importance of the opportunities, the transfer of articles, and potentially the transfer of peer review reports between journals, and tell you a bit more about this. So this is having the ability and the tools to be able to efficiently transfer manuscripts, and if they're post-review but pre-acceptance or pre-decision manuscripts, across between journals. And the intention with this, which is something which BioMed Central does a lot with its in-house titles, is to avoid wasting reviewer and author effort. And in particular, it also helps solve a dilemma for editors, which is that they're really seeking to increase the selectivity of their journal, build an impact factor, to build a reputation. But they also hate to be in a position of going through peer review and then saying that to an author, well, we know your research is sound, we know it's kind of worth publishing, but we think it's probably going to lower our impact factor, so we're going to give you a rejection. And that's going to send the author right back after several months to the beginning of the process, potentially, of trying to get their research published. And that's not really good for anybody. And so what we are seeking to do, and we do within the BMC series, and we do working with some independent journals already, is to give editors another choice, which is rather than providing simply a rejection, to provide a rejection, but also an offer to be transferred for consideration by publication in another title, while making the review reports available. And this can potentially save time for everybody, and it really helps to make the whole model work as well from the perspective of a publisher. A high rejection rate journal potentially doesn't publish very many articles. It can be very expensive to run, but if it's a magnet for research which is publishable, and if that research can then go on to be published elsewhere, it helps to keep the overall economics good and therefore the costs down. And this is a model which has really started to attract a lot of attention. We use it for example on genome biology. We transfer articles across down from genome. If they're good genomic articles but not quite of genome biology caliber, if that's our highest impact factor journal, they may go to BMC Genomics or BMC Medical Genomics, BMC Bioinformatics. We also have the journal BMC Research Notes, which Ian may have mentioned in an open data context, which emphasizes publishing data sets. And we can often say that even an article which may publish a useful amount of data, but doesn't really present a very compelling scientific story, it still belongs in the scientific record, so we could transfer those sort of slightly archival articles for consideration by BMC Research Notes. And this model was certainly, I think, the inspiration in terms of PLOS ONE, which has been very successful, has grown. It's a little bit like the BMC series, but all one journal. And essentially it got started by all the many rejected articles from the high-end PLOS journals, which are perfectly publishable, but just not quite sufficiently interesting to be in those real high-end journals. And so since then, many other publishers have recognized that this is a pretty attractive model, makes a lot of sense in terms of making effective use of reviewer time, and works well in the context of open access journals. So there have been many sort of copycat launches of this. In terms of how independent journal editors might use it, as I mentioned, you can imagine transferring these kind of incremental results and saying, well, maybe this is more suitable for the journal BMC Research Notes. Many journals have a policy of saying, case reports, we can see some value in case reports, but again, we don't want to lower our impact factor. So any of the journals which have a policy of not accepting case reports, we encourage them to think about offering those authors a transfer to the more suitable venue of journal medical case reports. And lastly, some research comes in that's simply out of scope for the journal. And so that will typically be recognized pre-review, but it's still a good opportunity to be able to say to the author, yeah, it's not suitable for this journal, but it may be more suitable for that. And rather than the author being faced with having to do the whole process of resubmitting themselves, we can offer them the transfer directly. Now, right now, the current model for this is that BioMed Central staff have the tools available to carry out these transfers very efficiently. But all the correspondence with independent journal editors with regard to which articles may be suitable for transfer is ad hoc via email. In terms of how we're developing the new systems, we're seeking to take that article decision page and give you editors an additional option, so that rather than a straight flat rejection, there can be a rejection, but it's possible to highlight a rejected manuscript as being of potential interest for transfer, and optionally, editors may be able to recommend a possible title for the transfer. So we recognise that some journal editors may not want to get involved in deciding where's the most appropriate place to offer a transfer. They may just say this article is publishable. BioMed Central staff should decide whether it's worth offering an alternative to. But in other cases, we certainly already have independent journal editors who have an existing relationship. For example, I think retrovirology will sometimes transfer articles across for consideration by BMC infectious diseases. So it's just one of the benefits, and I'll come on to talk a bit later about the improved tools we're working on. But we do think that this has benefits on both sides, because certainly we hear from quite a few editors that they do feel a dilemma between this wanting to increase the quality of the what they publish, while also wanting to provide a good service to authors. I then wanted to just mention a little bit some of the benefits and some of the interesting things reflecting on the last 2.5 years since BioMed Central has become part of Springer. This kind of acquisition of a publisher, I would say more often than not, it doesn't go too well. There are all sorts of different challenges which may arise when companies merge. Just mergers in general can be quite challenging. But the acquisition of BioMed Central by Springer has been a very positive one from both sides. And I think there are various reasons for that. Just to give you an idea of the timeline, we became part of Springer in October 2008. We moved into our new offices in 2009 and have been joined there by the other UK parts of Springer. So Springer does now have an increasingly significant UK base. And then in December 2009, Springer itself had new ownership because its existing private equity owners sold the company to EQT, which is based in Sweden. And the basis of that sale was Springer's strategy for growth for the future. And what's very interesting to that is there are 3 main pillars to that, and open access is right there at the top. Open access is very much what Springer sees as being strategically a huge opportunity for it to go from being the second place STM publisher in the world and the strongest in areas outside biomedicine to potentially really challenging elsewhere in terms of growing to offer to be the most successful STM publisher. And so it's been a great fit for BioMed Central to be involved with Springer at this time where they see open access as playing such a strategic role. And I'll talk a bit more about that. Ebooks is obviously slightly less relevant to BioMed Central, and books play a bit less of a role in biomedical areas. But the other major sort of plank of Springer's growth going forward is the opportunities in emerging markets, and certainly there's a huge amount of crossover there. So I'll just talk a little bit about that too. So in terms of working with Springer on open access, the Springer brand is very strong outside biomedicine. BioMed Central has got a very strong open access brand in biomedicine. So it was very natural, therefore, that Springer felt it would be good to extend the success of open access to these non-biomedical fields. And they did so with the Springer Open brand, which was launched late last year, and it's already just gone on to be really successful. So it operates entirely on using the BioMed Central Open Access platform, takes advantage of things like our membership relationships, our ability to handle article payments very efficiently, and all of our online tools. It already has around 45 journals with a really impressive rate of growth. That consists of new launches, but also the conversion of existing Springer titles. And it's been really impressive that many of those titles have just seamlessly moved from one model to the other and are going from strength to strength on the new platform. And then to really give the whole system a leg up, they also just earlier this year acquired 11 open access titles from Hindawi, which again very seamlessly moved into the Springer portfolio, moved across to the BioMed Central driven platform, and are doing really well. But I think the most important point about Springer Open is it does reflect Springer's strategic commitment to the open access model and to the BioMed Central platform as a mechanism to really efficiently run journals on that model. And that's important for a bunch of reasons. What it means is and I'll now move on to talk about technology, but it means we have a real strong underlying case to continue to really actively invest in and develop the platform which delivers these open access journals. So the biggest project over the last year or more has been the new journal website project, delivering the main sort of user experience for readers and authors of the journal. And we have nearly 150 journals on this portal, on this platform right now. There are still the remaining DMC series titles, a few independent journal titles which have a few special requirements, and the main BioMed Central portal site still to migrate. But we're in the final stage of testing performance tuning for that. And this is going to be a really major milestone when we're fully on this new platform.